Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our reading through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn out to poem 654, A Long, Long Sleep, a famous sleep. One scholar has called this Emily's slowest line by virtue especially of all those dashes that will force us to read this poem in a slow fashion. We are back to another poem about death. In 1896, when it was published, it was called Sleeping. Emily, of course, never called it that. But in many ways, that will be a significant title for us because of the nature of the metaphor that's being played here of death as the long, famous sleep. Famous as in well-known, as in everyone must do it. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily is our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 653 poems. We just finished with 653 of Being as a Bird. And if you've done that reading, then you'll recognize the echoes of a poem like this to previous poems. And in fact, at 3A, you'll start to say, this sounds so much like other poems. Now, I think standing behind this are two things, possibly tied together, because John Donne would have himself has said that Holy Sonnet 10 is in large measure a referencing to the idea of dying as sleeping. I think standing behind this again is Emily's reading of the King James Bible. And more particularly, you'll remember the story of Jairus' daughter, his 12-year-old daughter. Jairus comes to Christ and says, my daughter is dead. And Christ will say, by the way, this story is told in Matthew 9:24 and Mark 5:38 through 42, and in Luke 8:52 through 56. No, your daughter isn't dead. She's just sleeping. Now, I think also standing behind this will be John Donne's valediction, Holy Sonnet 10, and we'll share that one again, remind ourselves of that one again. I think also Hamlet is standing behind this poem as well. You'll remember that Hamlet in his famous "To be or not to be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles and by opposing in them." What does he say? To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. There's the rub, right? What dream of death may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. And I think this is a poem where Emily is going to demand that pause, and she'll do it through her syntax and through her punctuation of the dash. It's brilliant. She says it this way: a long, long sleep, a famous sleep, that makes no show for morn by stretch of limb or stir of lid, an independent one. Was ever idleness like this? Upon a bank of stone to bask the centuries away, nor once look up for noon. Now, some have read this as, again, Emily's skepticism about the very notion of a possible resurrection. Back to the last lines of 652, you'll remember, the liberty we knew avoided like a dream too wide for any night but heaven, if that indeed redeem. Now, notice here it comes in the form of a rhetorical question of a kind. We'll begin with a long, long sleep, a famous sleep. Here, John Donne's Holy Sonnet 10, Death Be Not Proud. Of course, many say this is Donne's most famous poem. We've given full lectures and exegesis on this poem at learnstrong.net. Let's just enjoy the poem. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. From rest and sleep, which by thy pictures be much pleasure, then from thee much more must flow, and soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls' delivery. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dost with poison, war, and sickness dwell, and poppier charms can make us sleep as well and better than thy stroke. Why swellest thou then, one short sleep past? We wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. Now that is John Donne's, of course, powerful statement that the reason that death is nothing more than sleep is because of afterlife. Notice here for Emily, it will be the question of the noon with a question mark. She'll say it long, and then she repeats herself. Long, and then notice sleep is capitalized and repeated twice. A famous sleep, of course, what are we saying here? This is everyone must do it. You, as we have said many times in 303, you've never met a 200-year-old person. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means everybody's got to go to the van. You can't swing at the park forever, as we've often said. And of course, every child says, I don't want to go to the van. No, honey, you can't swing at the park forever. You got to go to the van. In other words, everybody's got to go to their sleep, to their eternal sleep. Is it eternal? And then she asks about it. This sleep, it makes no show for morn. Notice we'll go from morning to noon. By stretch of limb. In other words, once you're dead, you don't get to stretch in the morning. Or stir of lid. Now, lid here is interesting, right? Because it can be, of course, the lid of the coffin, if you will, right? An independent one. And, of course, independent may be the key word of the poem, because sleep renders us to a prison, much like the previous poem that we studied. And then she'll begin with a rhetorical question. Ever idleness like this? Now, Emily, of course, understood idleness better than almost any poet we could read. And again, who's this question to? And this is one more reason we've named our series Chats with Emily. She becomes almost like, hey, come here for a second. Do you think idleness is a lot like sleeping, which is a lot like dying? By the way, hear all the L sounds of this poem. Upon a bank of stone, the tombstone, right? To bask the centuries away. Of course, their use of the word bask will bring into question the tone here. Nor once look up for noon. In other words, there is no morning or noon for those sleeping in death. I think the point she's making here is that death is a mystery that one never fully understands or appreciates. At 2b, though, the tone, I think, is the key. Some have seen this tone as being sarcastic. Again, our Chats with Emily comes to mind as naming our series, because she is speaking kind of chatty to you. Dave, do you ever think, when you think about dying as sleeping? At 3a, well, we've mentioned, of course, Shakespeare's Hamlet, John Donne's Holy Sonnet 10. There's so many other poems that will come to mind that will lead to a similar kind of tone. What is it that Keats, she admired Keats so much? When I have fears that I may cease to be, then on the shore of that wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame to nothingness do sink. It's possible Emily's playing a similar kind of game rhetorically here. Finally, in 3b, how do you understand the whole notion of Beowulf's dragon and the inevitability that we all must go to sleep? Thank you.